Hey guys, it's me again. I'd just like to briefly talk about predestination versus free will because I sort of got into it with some people on Twitter today. I just want to read a passage first from Ephesians chapter 1, verses 4 through 5. Pick up my Bible here. Just as he chose us in him before the foundation of the world, that we should be holy and without blame before him in love, having predestined us to adoption as sons by Jesus Christ to himself, according to the good pleasure of his will. Okay, now that clearly says that we were predestined from before the foundations of the world. Now, if that's the case, if we were predestined to believe in Jesus, that means there's a flip side to that. Now, you come up with your own conclusions, but that's what the Bible says. We were predestined, those of us who are saved. Now, let me just bring up this scenario here. Let's say there's this street, okay? There's this truck driver. He's going 40 miles an hour in a 25 mile per hour zone. And there's this kid, this toddler, crossing the street. Now, this truck driver, whether or not he's negligent or maybe he's actually evil, he just keeps on going and hits the kid, runs him over. Pretty horrible, right? Now, picture a guy who's sitting on his porch and same street, he sees that toddler crossing the street, and the guy looks at the end of the street, he sees that truck driver coming down 4 miles an hour, and he has time to run up to the street to pull that kid out of harm's way. But instead, he just decides to sit down, to keep sitting, and he just watches the truck strike the toddler. Now, is that guy any less evil than the truck driver who actually struck the toddler? You tell me. Now, the reason I bring up that illustration is because, you know, I told somebody that, nothing came into existence by accident or outside of God's will. And that includes evil and Satan and all that, all these horrible things in the world. Okay, none of this happened by accident. It didn't happen outside of God's will and providence and power. Now, does it matter? Well, they're saying, well, God didn't create this evil. He merely allowed it. But to me, what's the difference? Whether God created the evil or he just permitted it when he could have done something to stop it. Doesn't that make God equally evil? Well, if that's how you want to look at it, yes, of course it does. But the thing of it is, God's ways are higher than ours. And what we perceive as evil or not right or not justice, that's fine. We can have our own opinions. But one day, God is not going to answer to anyone. He'll never answer to anyone. He has no one to answer to. If you disagree with his ways now, well, that's on you. One day it'll all make sense on the other side of eternity. But the fact is, the Bible clearly teaches that we were predestined from before the foundations of the world. Now, does that mean we don't have free will? Well, all I know is when I got saved, my choice was real. I did it out of my own quote unquote free will. I chose to believe the Bible and I chose to put my faith in Jesus and his completed work on the cross. Now, whether or not that choice was real, if it was actually free will, I don't care. It really doesn't matter to me. All I know is God chose me, and that's the bottom line. And my response is just a heart of gratitude and thankfulness for God choosing me when, whatever, he chose me. That's the end of the story. It doesn't change the fact that we have to preach the gospel. It's not our business to figure out who's the elect and who's not. And yes, I believe in the whosoever. Okay, I'm one of those guys. Whosoever believes in him will not perish but have everlasting life. I absolutely believe that. But again, this concept of free will, don't get hung up on that. On our side of eternity, the choice is ours. Now, whether or not God authored everything? Well, there's no whether or not. The Bible is clear that Jesus is the author and finisher of our faith. The Bible cannot be more clear than that. So stop trying to defend free will, okay? I'm not saying that there's no such thing, or there is. But the thing is, the people who argue till they turn blue, insisting that it's all about free will, and if there's no free will, then God's not worthy. That's just a bunch of crock. It really is. What those type of people are actually doing is not defending God's character. What they're doing is defending their own sovereignty. Basically, what they're saying is, you know what? I made my choice. God has no power over my choice. Even if I chose to go to hell, that's my choice. God can't do anything about it because I'm sovereign and God can't do anything about it. When they argue about free will that passionately, that's really what they're doing. They're not trying to defend God. They're trying to defend their own sovereignty and that God has no power over them. That is my beef. My beef is not free will. I don't really care. It doesn't matter because there's nothing I can do about it. To me, like I said, my will feels free enough. It feels like the choice I made was out of my own volition, and that's good enough for me. I don't need to spend all my days trying to convince people that, there's such a thing as free will or there's not. Preach the gospel. The gospel, we are told to preach the gospel, not to preach that there's such a thing as free will. So don't get all hung up on that, okay? Anyway, sorry for my rant. I just felt that it would be easier to make a brief video about it. Thank you for watching. It's August, almost September. End of the Shemitah cycle, if you're following that, is about a month from now. And hopefully there's, something significant about that. And hopefully we'll be out of here soon.